Welcome to Tigrai Media House. My name is Maliti Burhana. It has been 2 months, a little over 2 months, since the cessation of hostilities agreement was signed in South Africa, and there have been a series of meetings since then. There were really high hopes that things would change and things would change quickly in Tigray, where it's a really dire situation, but the deliverables have been pretty low. We hear that banking is open, but there's no cash. So individuals can't actually retrieve money from their bank accounts. And if you are able to, we know that there are Amhara Fano dressed as federal police who rob you in broad daylight. We know Eritrean soldiers have not left Tigray. Instead, we get daily reports of killings, of intimidation, of looting. Entire towns have been taken over by Eritrean mercenaries in Tigray. The food is inadequate. We get reports from families being denied aid because they're not in their quote unquote hometown. And they fled their towns because they're occupied by Eritrean soldiers. So they're stuck in a limbo state, unable to even get the limited aid that's available. Phones and internet and electricity, all of it is sporadic. It's on one day and off the next day. We hear that the airlines are operating, but now there are limitations on who can actually travel. They say young people under 16 or elders over 75 can fly. And this discrimination is taking place and really just leaving Tigrayans with a sense of desperation and not really knowing who to turn to for help. In the diaspora, we're getting lots of news about family members who have passed away. There's sickness. The despair is just really overwhelming, not knowing how to help our families, not having a clear strategy for what's happening. But there are groups who are doing something about this. And today's guest, Hiwet Kidanamariam, is with the Tigrayan Youth Association in Victoria. Hiwet, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Hiwet, I want to ask you a little bit before we get into this actual event that you're hosting for Tigrayan youth. I want to talk to you a little bit about the spirit and how you all are doing. And I want you have a really unique story because you were actually in Tigray when the war began in 2020 and had a really harrowing journey out, actually, of trying to get out of Tigray. Tell us a little bit about your story, and also tell us about how you were feeling then and maybe how you're feeling now personally, and then just in general with young people around you.
Yeah, so like you said, leaving Tigray was definitely an experience when the war had started. But I think one thing that was really important to me after leaving Tigray and making my way back into Australia was to ensure that I could do everything that I could in my powers to make sure that the fight continued and the work was being done. And I think with any work that we do in the diaspora, we need to really always focus in our own communities as well and at home. So that's when I took it upon myself to make sure that I could do everything that I could in my powers to continue the work that was happening in the diaspora and my local community here in Victoria as well. And I think like many other Tigrayans across the world, it's been quite a rough 2 years. It's been a lot of emotions and mixed feelings, sometimes high hopes and at times, some real low times as well. And I think what's been important for our youth here in Victoria as well as in Australia, is to ensure that we really stay connected. We've all kind of grown up in sometimes mixed communities and surrounded by different individuals as well. And I think one thing that's really taught a lot of the young people in the past 2 years is that your own community is your home and your safety point as well. So that's where I think a lot of our work has come in, is to really provide our young people a safe space to come together and to be in an environment where they were with their own as well, and where they could really, I guess, learn about their culture and their heritage and their bloodline. Because, I think in the past, unfortunately, we've wasted a lot of time, and there hasn't always been as much, I guess, information passed on to young people as well. And I think some of our parents with, just how Tagaros are with their warm hearts as well, have really been always inclusive and loving as well. And I think during these times, it's been really important to pass that knowledge and information onto the young generation as well, because in the future, we all know that our community, our Tigray community, is what's going to hold us together. And it's once we as a community here are strong and can stand on our own 2 feet that we can really provide the support to back home and Tigray as well.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting that, and I want you to tell us just a little bit more about your story, like where you were when the war started and sort of how you got out. I think it's really interesting that here we are more than 2 years later, and Tigrayans are still having a hard time getting out of a war zone, getting out of genocide, escaping genocide, essentially. But where were you when the war started? And just tell us just briefly. I know it's a long and complicated and really interesting story. I've heard it before, but tell us a little bit about where you were and how you got out. And what you
Yeah, when the war started, I was based in Mekelle at that time. So I was doing some work for a local organization based in Mekelle. So when the war started, I was there in the center of Mekelle. Obviously, like everyone that was around me, a very unexpected experience. I think at that time was really funny because I feel like those that were outside of Tigray had more knowledge, or I guess saw what was coming more than those that were within Tigray. So for us, it was just the biggest shock of our lives. So when that all started, you don't really ever think that you're going to be in a situation like that. So there isn't really a manual or a step of what to do and who to contact. And obviously with the communication blackout, that made it, impossible to reach anyone outside as well. So that's where I was, and making my way out. I was, fortunate enough to be taken to the UN compound, where I was one of the people that were taken out of Mekelle through Afar on a UN convoy with other foreign passport holders as well. So there were others that were with me that were from America and the UK and such as well. So we were taken out on a bus from Mekelle through to Afar, where we were promised there was going to be like an immediate flight that was waiting for us to take us to Addis, but that wasn't the case. And we were there for about 3 days. Because there was issues from Addis Ababa side and getting us into Addis Ababa, and they obviously left us there for quite a bit, and then eventually made our way into Addis. But what's really funny is there was recent images that I've seen of people that had arrived, I think, to Addis Ababa, and they were at the airport at getting interviewed as well with the integration. And that's literally what happened to us. I remember when we arrived at Addis Ababa, they took us to Bole airport, that is, and they took us to a separate area. And in that separate area, it was just all these interrogations and questions about who you are and who, you're supposedly affiliated with, what political group, this and that, and just very unnecessary and unconnected questions. So when I saw that recently, it was very, very triggering, because that's literally the position that myself and the others were in, 2 years back. And it's just crazy to think that it's still happening. Nothing has changed in those terms, and people are still experiencing those experiences.
Wow, that's powerful. To be treated like an enemy because of where you come from, and to be interrogated that way, it's really tragic. What are spirits like now for young people in who you're surrounded by? Tell us a little bit about if your conversations have changed, compared to when you first came back home, and now sort of what kind of strategy, or what is the conversation among young people now in terms of how you support Tigray and Tigrayans?
I think 2 years ago, when I first came, the energy was a bit different in terms of there was a clear goal and a clear vision, and we knew exactly what was happening and what needed to be done. So it was a straight aim of, okay, this is what we're doing. And, everyone was in the same conversations, and we were all thinking the same things as well, and knew what needed to be done. And that's still the case. I think now, though, it's, there's this air of a bit of confusion, I'd say, and it's left a lot of young people wondering, okay, like, do we get happy and excited? Are we hopeful? Or there are other young people that are thinking, okay, it's, these times are just quite difficult. It's not, you don't really know what's going to happen next as well. So there's this air of confusion, and it's left a lot of young people wondering, what can I do? What do I do? What do I believe? What do I not believe? So it's been really important for us to continue having these dialogues and these conversations with our young people to ensure that we're all in the same mindset, and we all know, what the clear goal is and what the clear agenda is, and to ensure that everyone still continues to do their part. Because obviously, as we can see now, nothing has really changed back home for our people on the ground. So it's been really important to continue these conversations to ensure that we're all still, I guess, aligned with our mission and our vision as well.
An air of confusion. I think that the people of Tigray share that confusion as well. At least the reports that we've been getting on a daily basis is a frustration and confusion about where do we go? Who can help us with our struggle? So I understand what you're saying. Tell us about the Tigray Youth Association in Victoria. Tell us a little history about the organization and what you all focus on.
Yeah, so the Tigrayan Youth Association in Victoria has been operating for about 9 years now, but it's really in the last 2 years since the genocide started that it's been very active. I guess our main goal is to ensure that we provide our young people here a safe space where they continue to learn about their culture and their heritage, as well as providing support to Tigray through different fundraising events as well. So it's a balance of two that we always do.
That's awesome. And you have an event that's coming up. And at the end of our show, we're going to show a clip about this event. But tell us about this event. It sounds like it's January 19th to the 22nd. It's a 3-day wellness and cultural event. Tell us about that, what's being planned and how it came together and what the goals are for your event.
Yeah, so this is an event that we're super, super excited about. We've been working for many, many months. I'd say over 6 months now that we've been working on this project. And essentially, our association came together and thought, okay, what is it that our young people need during these times? It's been a long struggle and a long battle. So how can we support them and what can we provide them? So we went out into our community and we went into spaces that young people were meeting, whether it was at soccer matches or church and other locations, to really have one-on-one conversations with our young people, with our youth, and to ask them, what is it that we can provide you? What is it that you need that could support you during these times? We also held things like focus groups where we invited young people into a safe space, and we really had honest and just open conversations. And it was really a great way to get an insight into the minds of the young people and to see what it is that they were thinking, what they needed as well during these times. And throughout these, various conversations came about this 3-day event. So we reached out to our local council government that's here in Victoria, and we put forward this project idea, and we were successful in receiving a grant to support this project. So we've partnered up with our local council to put together this 3-day event. And I guess when putting together this 3-day event, it is a huge project, but we really wanted to, I guess, group and focus on a lot of the topics that were brought up by young people themselves. So there was things that were said about, wanting to learn more about their culture. Some people needed more support around, mental health as well. And others just wanted a space where they can just come together and enjoy themselves in activities that they're familiar with, like, soccer as well. So after all these conversations and these feedbacks that we had from our youth, we put this together as a youth association. It's a 3-day event, like you said, starting on Thursday the 19th to Sunday the 22nd. And we've invited, all the diaspora globally and Australia-wide to come to Melbourne and to join us. It's a very, very jam-packed long weekend that's happening, and we're just super excited.
I think earlier you said something interesting. You said in the past, we wasted a lot of time. So there was information that wasn't passed on for whatever reason to young people. And I feel like now in the diaspora, you all are doing this rapid, catch up, game, sprint, relay, marathon, trying to get this information to young people so that they know who they are and so that they're grounded in who they are. And the different activities that you have seem to show that. I want to talk first about the wellness portion of the event, because I think that's really important. I want you to tell me a little bit about the challenges around wellness that young people are facing. We've heard stories all across, certainly here in North America, where I am, of the struggles that young people have had, everything from, depression over the past 2 years, because of just normal life in America, but also, the genocide over the past 2 years has compounded that, a feeling of like an identity crisis, because for forever, Tigrayans have always been Ethiopians. And now there was this rejection that happened. And so you were left trying to like scramble and figure out who you are. Which I think ultimately bodes well for Tigray, but it was a painful process. So we saw depression, we saw substance abuse, even suicide in some communities. So tell me about what you heard around the struggles around wellness and what activities you have planned around that.
Well, that's the thing. Those topics that you've just mentioned, I think, are felt globally. It's the same thing here in Australia as well. I think throughout the past 2 or so years, it's been an extremely difficult time for obviously our whole community, and especially our young people as well, because like you've said, a lot of the young people have spent time, in the wider Ethiopian community, in the wider Eritrean community, and one day have woken up to this identity crisis, and to see what's unfolded in front of them as well. And with what's going on back at home, with the whole COVID pandemic, with just an everyday of being a young person, it really truly takes a toll on young people. And that's where we've seen things like depression and anxiety, and substance abuse, as well as suicide as well. And that's why this key this key component, the wellness aspect, is really important to us, not just as a youth association, but I know to our young people as well, because it was something that was brought up by various young people, and we could clearly identify that it was something that was needed. We've had conversations with even parents and our older main association and our women's association. And, for our parents, it's really difficult because they feel quite helpless and don't really know how to help their children, where, and they see them every day in their rooms with the doors closed, and it's this barrier that they feel like they can't really cross over, and they are left feeling helpless and don't really know how to support their young people. And that's why I think we've also put this together, is to really put forward an event, the wellness aspect, that is, to really provide young people a safe space. That Thursday, on the Thursday the 19th of January, it is a youth only event, and that's particularly because of this conversation that we'll be having, this wellness aspect. We really wanted to ensure that, because it is the first time that something like this is being done, not just in our Victorian community, but in our Australian community, that it was a space where young people could come, feel comfortable and safe to really, not just learn, but also just open up to the very difficult conversations that we're going to be having. And that was a large focus on this program. So with the wellness aspect, it's a two-part conversation that's going to be held. During the two-part, there is a panel discussion that we'll be having, and this panel discussion is youth-led, and the experts that we have on the panel discussion come from various psychology backgrounds as well. Some are students, some are professionals, and some are just public figures in our community that have worked in different scenes as well and come from different backgrounds. And altogether, we've got people with, 30 or so years of experience in the wellness and in the mental health field as well. And our community, including the elders, are really excited, and we've spoken about it at churches, and we've spoken about it in different settings. And our parents are just really excited to see something put together like this, because I know for them it's the support that they also need. I think it goes beyond just supporting our young people, but it's supporting our parents and the elders in having these conversations as well, because the past 2 years, this intergenerational trauma that's happened has taken such a large toll. And I know that for our young people to see, what their parents have experienced in the past, and now for them to live through this genocide, even in the diaspora, has been quite difficult.
Yeah, I think what we often miss is that this isn't the first genocide on the people of Tigray, and our elders have lived in a culture of just pushing, we of downplaying what has happened. And there's an attitude of like, you have to be strong and you have to just be, that resiliency is good, but you also have to process the trauma. We're always in survival mode. And so we haven't really dealt with those issues. We don't understand our culture from that context of trauma and genocide. And so I think that's really a powerful cultural shift that's happening. And we see that even among our elders of being more open to talk about, what has happened to them and what they've seen. And, and it's also good that you're tapping into your own community. We really do have all the resources among ourselves to heal our people. And that's going to be even more important once we do have access to Tigray. But it's beautiful that you all are tapping into that right now to help everyone. Can you share any tips, anything that, something quick, a de-stressor or something that's worked for you or something that you've heard that someone watching this show could take away that could potentially, when you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling really sad, just something that may have worked for you?
I think it's really important during these times to just really go back to what it is that is your safe space, whether that's, exercising, whether that's reading a book, meditating, going to church, whatever that may be. I think it's really important for us to find that one aspect that brings us peace, but and supports us both physically and mentally. And I know for me, that's been going to the gym and spending some time in there and just blocking the world out for an hour or two and just de-stressing as well. So I think find that one thing, find that thing that gives you peace and that lets you just really escape from everything that's happening around you, and just, I think focus your time a bit on that.
Absolutely. For me, I'll share what I've done. I look for the thing that brings me joy. I think that over the past 2 years, there's been so much death and so much despair and just so much hopelessness that we almost feel like we don't deserve to be happy or we don't deserve to feel good. And so just finding that thing, and it's different for everyone, that brings you joy. And my other thing is sitting with elders and talking to your parents or your grandparents. If you're so lucky, many of them are stuck in Tigray with no form of communication because of this blackout. But I think our families have grown now. And so when I say elders, I don't just mean my blood family, I mean any elders around us. And that's been really healing for me. So I'll share that too. Another activity you have planned is Tariq Time. This is really something that excites me. I think that everyone worldwide, we should adopt this. I've always said that Tegaru need to tell our own stories. We're here because we haven't told our own stories. This was particularly difficult because we didn't know our stories and we're not passing that on to young people. So tell me about Tariq Time. What is the idea around that? And is it more like fable kind of stories, or is this like real stories from people and their experiences? Or tell us about that, the inspiration behind it, and also how you're going to execute it.
Well, that's the thing. Like we said earlier, I think in the past, because we've spent so much time that's been wasted, we're now scrambling to ensure that we don't waste any more time. And I think Tariq Time really ties in well with our wellness program as well as the whole day. Tariq Time came about because, like we said, we really wanted to capture and share and just document the stories of the elders and some of our parents and uncles and aunties and such in our community. And to do so, we wanted to really just go into the heart of it, which is our community ourselves. I think a lot of the times young people don't really have the opportunity to really sit down and talk with and connect with elders. I know sometimes if you're fortunate enough, you can tap into mum, dad, and an uncle and auntie, but I think sometimes that's as far as it goes. So what we really wanted to do was to share the stories that are already existing, because there are so many strong and powerful stories within our own community that young people don't really have an opportunity to hear. So it was important to us to really create this intergenerational conversation between the young people and the adults in our community and the elders, and to ensure that these stories were, one, documented, and two, shared on and passed on to our young people as well, because, they're really impactful stories. I don't think that we need to go, far out into other communities or look elsewhere when we have such impactful and strong stories in our community. So that's where this idea came about for Tariq Time. So essentially, it's a documentary that we've put together with selected and respected members in our Victorian community who have very powerful and strong stories, whether it's in Tigray or through migration to Sudan as well. And we've captured their stories into a 30-minute documentary that will be premiered at the event on Thursday, the 19th of Jan. And it'll be showed at a large theatre at the venue there. And we're just really excited because putting this together, even for myself, I know just hearing these stories, even if I've known some of these elders in the past in our community, I've never really had the opportunity to sit down and have these conversations with them. And what may seem like, a basic question really tells a story. And there are so many untold stories. And I really hope that this is something that's continued in our community here and also just globally in the diaspora, because it's so important to document and to keep our stories. It's important that we have these stories that we can pass on to our children in the future as well.
Absolutely. Wow. And I'm glad that this will be on film. It's something that can be watched over and over again. Hopefully you'll stream some of this stuff. I know it's more of an in-person personal event, but hopefully we'll be able to see some of those videos and stories. And I hope that people watching are inspired by this. I certainly am. And think that's something we could do here, where I'm based in Colorado, and there's a significant Tigrayan community here, and so many really great stories that are not being told. And as we lose our elders, we're losing those stories as well. So really powerful. Even if you just pull out our phones, our cameras these days, pull out your phone and just record, someone's story. I think that's really powerful. Thank you for that. Tell us about the Tigrai exhibition, and then anything else that you want us to know about your event that's coming up, and then repeat the dates too, so people know.
Yeah, so the Tigray exhibition is how it all starts. On Thursday, the 19th of Jan, there will be an exhibition that will showcase our culture, our food, our music, just everything Tigray related. And we've done this in a way that will be attractive to our young people, because once again, Thursday's program will only be for the youth. So we'll be having that exhibition there. There will be paintings, there will be portraits, there'll be images. And what's been really important for us with the exhibition is to really tell a story. So when you make your way through the exhibition, it will start from back then, and it will take you through a story while showcasing our culture as well into what's happening now. So there will be a lot of time to, reflect and compare and have a look at, the past famines that have happened, the past genocides that have happened as well. And this is how, the whole day connects, because it will start with the cultural exhibition, which will be a visual aspect, and it'll take it through to the Tariq Time, where we'll have the stories that, will be told, and that will help the young people connect to the stories, to the images that they would have seen. And then to wrap it up with, that's where the wellness comes in as well. So with the exhibition, like I've said, it's a walkthrough that young people will be able to experience. They'll be able to sit down. They'll be involved in some drawings and paintings that will be happening live as well, to showcase some of the historical sites in Tigray. And then at the end of the exhibition there, we'll be having a live show that will be put together by young people themselves. And that live show is to really showcase what we've said. It's a love story that we're showing. So it's different ways that love is shown throughout Tigray, throughout the different regions, all the way from Raya to Tembian to, Maqala, everywhere that is. And we've got young people that are really excited to take part in this. And it's going to be a spotlight show that we've put together. So we're really excited. That will definitely also be shared on the internet as well as globally. So I hope other young people are able to see this and learn from it, as well as replicate it as well in their own communities. And again, those dates were Thursday, the 19th of January, which will be the first day there. And then Friday, the 20th of January is our Tigray Cup. So we've put together a Tigray Cup. We've invited other teams from different states in Australia to come and take part in the Tigray Cup. And that's a full day where it's open to the wider Tigrayan community. So there'll be families coming and the wider Tigrayan community will be joining us there just for a day to come together, enjoy the sun and have a kick with the ball as well, and just get the competitive spirit going. And then to wrap that day up with, we'll be having the youth program in the evening, and then coming back together on Sunday the 22nd with all our guests that are coming from interstate to really just say thank you and, you know, get home safely.
Amazing. What an incredible event. I love that you say it's a love story too. I feel like the one thing I can say for sure is that that young Tigrayans in the diaspora have told a love story about Tigray throughout this genocide, in spite of all of the pain. You've truly been the ones who have showed what Tigray is, and you had to do a lot of that investigating yourselves. So I love that you describe it that way. Young people have not wavered at all, and you've done tremendous work over the past 2 years. And we're all really, truly grateful. Thank you for all that you do. I hope that you keep it up. This is what gives us hope. And this is, you know, it's going to be the young people who go back and ultimately support Tigray and pull Tigray out of this trauma. So thanks for all that you do. We're going to show a short commercial clip about your event that's coming up. Thank you so much, Hewitt, for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Salam. The Tigrayan Youth Association in Victoria will be hosting the biggest national event for our youth in Melbourne, Victoria.
We invite you to join us from Thursday the 19th of January till Sunday the 22nd of January. We have a jam-packed program for you. On the Thursday, we'll be starting off with a cultural exhibition at Tariq Time. And to wrap things up on that day, we'll have a wellness seminar.
On the Friday, we'll have a Tigray Cup, which is our national soccer event, followed by a youth party on the Friday night.
And on the Sunday, since we are down under, we'll be having a barbecue, chucking some snags on the barbie, saying thank you for coming down and see you later.
This will be an amazing opportunity to meet and connect with other youth, as well as learning about our culture and history.
Be sure to come down and support your state in the National Tigray Cup.
Head over to the link in our bio to purchase your tickets for that weekend.
We hope to see you there.
there.